The front gates loomed taller than Camilla expected, brushed steel embossed with a sweeping crest she didn't recognize. Beyond them stretched the interior of the National BJJ Championship Camp, a modern fortress of mats and mirrors. Black and gold dominated the space. Thick banners hung like commandments from the high ceiling, each embroidered with the names of past champions. Spotlights hummed overhead, casting pools of light across the open floor layout. In one corner, a wall-length mirror reflected the movement of athletes already drilling, their voices sharp, bodies coiled with practiced power. Coaches in matching black jackets barked commands in clipped voices. Fighters rolled on the mats with precise aggression. Branded gear stretched across defined frames, logos stitched in silver. Every GI spotless, every belt tied with practiced arrogance. Camilla stepped inside, her white gi loose around her frame, unmarked by anything but time. The sandals on her feet were worn thin, the fabric strap frayed where it had been restitched by hand. Her hair, still damp from the rain outside, clung to her neck. No one looked at her directly, but the silence she carried followed her like a shadow. She moved without rush, her gaze scanning the gym's architecture as if memorizing it. No one offered help. A few glanced her way, then looked past her, uninterested. Her white belt hung loose, its faded edges nearly gray. To them, she was just another filler, another hopeful, who wandered too far from the beginner's class. She walked quietly toward the lockers, avoiding the main mat where two black belts slammed into position under a coach's watchful eye. Around her, the air was thick with sweat, ambition, and ego. Camilla said nothing. She had no entourage, no spotlight, only that belt around her waist, and the silence she wore like armor. The first time Camilla stepped onto the mat, no one gave her a partner. She stood quietly near the edge, her bare feet on the padded floor, watching as the others paired off. The head coach, a broad-shouldered man with a trimmed beard and a clipboard, glanced in her direction, but didn't call her over. After a few minutes of milling about, one of the assistants noticed her standing still and waved lazily. "Hey," he called, gesturing toward a stack of folded towels. "If you're not training, grab those." She looked at him, calmly. "I'm a participant," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. He blinked, then snorted. "Right. White belt. Huh. You sure you're in the right room?" A few nearby athletes chuckled. No one corrected him. She was eventually assigned a partner, a young man named Troy with a thick neck and a fresh tattoo across his collarbone. He looked her up and down like she was a prop. "Just keep your limbs loose," he muttered. "It'll go faster that way." They began positional sparring. Camilla followed the instructions cleanly, offering no resistance as Troy shifted through mounts and guards. Onlookers leaned against the wall, laughing quietly as he exaggerated his effort, grunting loudly with each pass. "Man, I'm working so hard here," he said, glancing toward a girl with a phone out. She aimed the camera as Troy rolled Camilla onto her back with theatrical flair. "Look at this open-weight dominance, baby." The video surfaced in a private group chat later that night. One clip had her caught in a headlock, eyes closed, sweat glinting along her brow. The caption read, "Charity Round White Belt Collapse." Someone added a slow-motion effect, looping her fall as music played over it. The post racked up over 70 laughing emojis before it was pulled into another thread. In the locker room, she found her bench already taken. Two women in branded rash guards were leaning across it, talking loudly about travel sponsors. One of them looked over and pointed to Camilla's belt, hanging damp on the hook. "Whose is this?" she asked, her nose wrinkling. "Looks like it came out of a thrift bin." "Probably hers," said the other, glancing at Camilla. "Did you see her spar? She moved like she learned BJJ from a YouTube ad." They didn't speak directly to her. They didn't need to. She said nothing, just collected her belt and moved to a wall corner where she could sit alone. Her lunch rice and carrots in a paper container was eaten without comment, her back to the main table. Conversations flowed around her. Her name never came up. During drills the next day, she was told to be a demonstration partner for takedown entries. The instructor gestured toward her vaguely, like choosing the least important item in the room. "You grab the G," he said. Camilla stepped forward. As he demonstrated the hip throw, she allowed her body to follow the technique, her feet light, her arms reactive. He did it again and again, then invited the class to try it on her. A line formed. One by one, athletes gripped her lapels and sent her crashing to the mat. Some did it wrong, others too hard. Her shoulder bruised after the 5th attempt. By the 9th, her knee was already swelling. "You're doing great," one woman said with a false smile as she slammed Camilla to the floor, really taking one for the team. The assistant coach standing nearby grinned. Maybe she'll absorb something through osmosis. That evening, someone threw a towel at her feet in the hallway. It landed with a wet slap against the tiles, water splashing onto her ankle. She glanced up to see a tall competitor walking past, earbuds in, not looking back. "I thought you were staff," he said over his shoulder. In the dining hall, the jokes followed her like smoke. A new post had gone up, this one showing her mismatched GI pants from the back. The caption read, "Lost and Found's newest member." A few chuckles rose when she walked in. Nobody said her name. She did her laundry at night, in the small machines tucked behind the training building, while the others scrolled through their highlight reels or played card games in the lounge. Camilla stood quietly, folding her G with slow, practiced hands. One night, her belt wasn't where she left it. She found it in the communal sink, soaked and stained, the ends tied together in a loose knot. No note, no explanation. Just water dripping steadily onto the tile. She wrung it out without a word, took it back to her bunk, and laid it flat to dry. During warm-ups, she was often asked to hold pads. It wasn't required, but she never declined. A few athletes liked using her as a warm-up partner. They said it was like hitting a sponge. She never flinched, never smiled. Her eyes stayed steady. She was invisible, but not forgotten. Her presence lingered in their humor, their sarcasm, their clips. She had become a kind of campin' joke. The girl who didn't belong, the filler, the ghost in the room who absorbed all the punishment without pushing back. One night in the lounge, a video played on someone's phone. It showed Camilla being swept during sparring, her body landing with a thud. The laughter was loud, but brief. She walked in moments later, expression blank, carrying a book and a bottle of water. The laughter stopped. No one spoke. She sat in the corner chair and opened the book. By the end of the first week, not a single person had asked her where she came from. No one asked her rank, her background, her goals. To them, she was a mistake, a white belt dropped into a program meant for stars. But she showed up for every role. She bowed every time. She tapped when needed. Stood again. Reset. Her GI was always clean. Her belt, though faded and worn, was always tied with perfect symmetry. And when the mats cleared, when the room emptied, when voices faded into music and phones, Camilla stayed behind, sweeping the floor, folding towels no one asked her to touch, fixing chairs that had shifted out of alignment. Not because she was expected to, but because she knew what kind of silence was worth keeping, and what kind wasn't. The main mats shut down just after 10. Lights dimmed in segments overhead, one row at a time, until only the exit signs glowed faint red against the walls. Footsteps faded. Laughter gave way to silence. The metallic clack of lockers and the hiss of showers were the last signs of life as the athletes cleared out. Camilla stayed seated on the wooden bench just outside the secondary mat room. Her GI top was folded neatly in her lap. She wound white tape slowly around her right wrist, turning it with her thumb, smoothing each layer flat. The tape was faded in places, fraying slightly near the edges. She checked the fit, gave the wrap a small tug, then flexed her fingers twice and stood. The smaller room didn't have cameras, just padded walls and 2 long strips of older mat, marked with lines for drilling. No banners, no names. A single light hummed from the corner ceiling, casting a wide oval glow that flattened the space. It was cold, clean, and still. Camilla stepped barefoot onto the mat and closed her eyes. Her left hand came up instinctively, pulling at a phantom collar. Her right foot rotated to base. Then she dropped to her hip, rolled, and posted with fluid motion. She didn't stop. She transitioned again. Shrimp, hip escape, shoulder roll, invert. Her breathing stayed low and steady, not hurried, not loud. Her body moved with the rhythm of memory, not performance. Each movement flowed into the next. Her hands did not fumble. Her back stayed low to the mat. When she posted into a sit-up guard, her hips were exactly where they needed to be. She kept her eyes open now, scanning invisible opponents, adjusting grips. She wasn't holding Giswara or Mai. The repetition didn't tire her. It focused her. She moved through the drills like someone unlearning the shame they'd been assigned. In the far corner, the soft squeak of a mop bucket broke the rhythm. The janitor paused in the doorway. He stood with one hand on the handle, the other tucked into a pocket. He was older gray at the temples, sunken eyes. He didn't say a word, just watched. Camilla continued. She reset, dropped into an open guard transition, swept an invisible ankle, and spun into a knee-cut pass. Her palms slapped the mat softly for balance. Her breath stayed calm. The janitor took 2 quiet steps forward. The mop handle rested against his shoulder now. He tilted his head slightly as she shifted to mount, then into a triangle setup. Her posture was flawless. He'd seen a lot of athletes in this building. None moved like that. She didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge his presence. Her focus never slipped. She drilled 3 more passes, then sat back on her knees and picked up a phone from the wall. The screen was cracked at the corner. She tapped it twice, scrolled to an old folder. A paused video lit the frame, her face younger, blood in her mouth, locking in a triangle choke against a fighter twice her size. She pressed play. The footage was rough, from a shaky phone camera, but the move was precise. Her hips flared, her knee pulled down, her ankles locked. The crowd in the background exploded. The janitor didn't move. She watched for 8 seconds, then shut the screen off and stood again. One more round. Her fingers tapped her thighs twice before she resumed motion. This time she moved faster. Transitions linked tighter, spins sharper, timing honed. Her body remembered pressure, weight, resistance. She knew the angles without mirrors. She'd been here before, in another gym, under another name, wearing another belt. She rolled once more, finished in technical mount, sat still. The janitor cleared his throat softly, then turned and left. Camilla exhaled through her nose and looked down at her wrist. The tape had begun to curl at the edge. She peeled it off, folded it into itself, and dropped it in the bin. Then she bowed to the empty mat, gathered her things, and stepped into the quiet hallway without a sound. The gym was louder than usual. Bright overhead lights poured onto the main mat, sharpening every edge. Folding chairs lined the edges for scouts and media staff. Tripods stood at the corners. The camp had promised an open exhibition. No stakes, just a showcase of skill. Most of the athletes wore their best gear, logos centered, belts freshly tied. The energy buzzed with practiced confidence. Camilla sat in the back, her name nowhere on the board, her presence unnoticed, until a staffer jogged over. Headset askew. "Camilla Hale," he called, reading from a clipboard. "You're on deck. Mat 2, match 5, against Vale." Heads turned, then snickers, then open laughter. "Are they serious?" someone muttered. "She's still here." Camilla stood, adjusted her belt. She walked to the edge of the mat without expression. Her GI was plain. Her posture wasn't. Ethan Vale was already stretching, surrounded by cameras. His smile was easy, calculated. He stepped forward with casual amusement, offering a low bow. "Didn't know they were doing white belt demos today," he said under his breath. "Hope your insurance is paid up." Camilla gave no reply. The match began. She stayed low, centered, hands steady. He feinted twice. She didn't bite. On his first grip, she broke contact and circled. The crowd noise dipped. Ethan moved in harder. Camilla caught an underhook and rotated under. Her hips turned, knees cut in. She swept. For a split second, his balance shifted. A murmur moved through the onlookers. Then he exploded. He twisted violently, lifted her mid-turn, and slammed her back first into the mat. The impact was sharp, brutal. The sound cracked across the room. Camilla didn't move. A beat of silence followed. Then a scout's voice whispered to someone behind a camera. "Cut the stream." Ethan stood, breathing hard. His expression had shifted, no longer playful. He didn't look at her. Two coaches crossed the mat without urgency. One knelt beside her, checked her pulse, then signaled to a staff member. They rolled her gently onto her side, then lifted her onto a stretcher. No announcement was made. No one clapped. No one asked if she'd return. The lights didn't dim. The cameras reset. The next match was called without delay. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead, casting a pale, clinical glow across the dorm's medical bay. The room was empty except for Camilla, who lay on a narrow cot beneath a thin white blanket. Her ribs ached with every breath. A dull throb settled behind her left eye. The air smelled of antiseptic and rubber gloves. She sat up, slowly, testing her balance. Her limbs moved stiffly, bruised but responsive. No chart hung by her bed. No one had come in. No one had left a note. She pressed her palm against her side, winced, then reached for the roll of medical tape on the tray nearby. Her fingers were sluggish at first, fumbling the tape. She wrapped it slowly around her ribs, flattening each strip with her thumb, her breath catching on the tighter turns. When it was done, she adjusted her posture, reached for her gi, and pulled it over her shoulders. Her belt hung from the bedpost. She tied it slowly, cinching it a notch tighter than before. The hallway outside was empty. The floors were cold beneath her bare feet. A faint echo followed her steps as she moved through the sleeping facility. The gym was dark, but one row of overhead lights flickered on when she entered the secondary mat room. She didn't hesitate. She dropped to the floor and began her drills. Guard transitions, hip escapes, technical mounts. Her breathing was sharp and steady. The pain never left. It was threaded through every movement, but it didn't stop her. She flowed from one position to the next with quiet precision. Her hands finding each grip in the air. Her feet shifting on instinct. There was no music, no audience, only the sound of her breath and the slap of her palm against the mat as she moved through the next repetition. And the next, and the next. Camilla's name appeared on the bracket board in fading ink, wedged awkwardly at the bottom corner. It wasn't printed. It was handwritten like a late edition or a clerical error. The openweight division was supposed to be the highlight of the day, a final flourish for the Federation scouts and sponsors gathered in the top row. No one expected anything from her. Most barely remembered she was still in the building. A ripple of laughter passed through the spectators when her name was read aloud. Some tilted their phones to record what they assumed would be a fast, forgettable loss. Her first opponent, Briggs, a middleweight blue belt with fast hands and an easy grin, approached her with the casual air of someone who'd already won. He slapped her hand lightly, gripped her collar, and drove forward. Camilla didn't resist. She redirected. He overcommitted. 19 seconds later, she was standing again, one knee down, his hand tapping furiously against her forearm as the armbar locked in. The referee paused, checking both expressions. Camilla let go without looking at anyone. Briggs rolled away in disbelief. A few people clapped, uncertain whether to be amused or impressed. Her second match was against a heavier grappler, known for brute strength and single-leg drives. He underestimated her guard. She baited him, shifted her hips, and swept him flat. Mounted, transitioned, finished with a cross-collar choke so tight it took him 5 seconds to sit upright afterward. Now the crowd quieted. The third opponent wore a black belt. He moved cautiously. He gripped tighter. She stayed lower, more patient. When he tried to pass, she inverted and took his back in one smooth, fluid motion. Hooks in, choke set, tap. Coaches started standing. The live stream feed, once filled with comments mocking the filler, now flashed with new messages. Who is she? What gym is she from? Rewatching that sweep. By her fourth match, the athletes who had laughed at her now watched in silence. Phones hovered over the edge of the bleachers. The bracket was being updated in real time. Her name no longer smudged in ink, but underlined on the screen in bold. Her fifth opponent, Devin Blitz Renault, was a rising star with sponsorship deals and a flawless record at regionals. He stepped onto the mat with careful confidence, already sweating. Camilla didn't look at him. She bowed, gripped, moved. He sprawled, tried to reset, but she dragged him off balance, slid under, and flipped. The entire gym fell still as she executed a flawless transition from De La Riva guard to side control, then floated effortlessly into mount. His defense tightened. Her pressure tightened more. The choke came from nowhere. He didn't just tap, he gasped. His coach shouted something no one heard. The live stream's commentator went silent for a moment before whispering, "That was perfect jiu-jitsu." The crowd stood. Phones were everywhere now. A scout at the far edge took out a clipboard and scribbled something down. Camilla sat on her heels at the mat's edge, calm, untouched by the noise. Then they called the final name. Ethan Vale entered with swagger, the favored face of the camp, wearing a custom G with his name embroidered across the shoulder. He grinned as he faced her again, stepping casually onto the mat. Still breathing, he said low, "Let's fix that." She didn't answer. The gym was packed now, every chair filled. The live stream chat had spiked in viewers. Coaches leaned forward. The match began. Ethan surged in hard, grabbing high and low, trying to unbalance her early. She stepped to the side, baited his grip, slipped out, and rolled under. He chased fast, too fast, and she caught his leg, hooked deep, swept. He hit the mat harder than he expected. The sound echoed. Camilla didn't press. She flowed. Side control. Ethan twisted. She followed. He bridged. She posted. He tried to scramble, but she was already behind him, both hooks in. She didn't squeeze yet. She waited. Then she took the collar. The moment his hand shot up to tap, the gym erupted. Shouts. Applause. Chairs scraping back. Every phone raised. Camilla let go the instant he tapped. She stood slowly. Ethan lay on his side, blinking up at the ceiling, his mouth open like he was trying to understand what had just happened. The referee raised her hand. She didn't smile. She didn't look at the crowd. She bowed, stepped off the mat, and tied her belt tighter around her waist. No one spoke her name. Not yet. But everyone watched her walk out. The gym held its breath. Ethan Vale's tap was sharp, a panicked staccato against Camilla's forearm. The referee dove in instantly. Camilla released the choke the moment his hand struck once, twice, then 3 times. Ethan collapsed to his side, his chest heaving. His face was pale, sweat streaming from his jawline, mouth open as he tried to find breath that had abandoned him. Camilla stepped back in one smooth motion and stood tall at the center of the mat, her belt still secure around her waist. For a full second, there was silence. Then the sound rose, not in cheers, but in a rushing wave of stunned murmurs. Coaches stood. Phones snapped upward. Commentators leaned toward their microphones, suddenly aware they were live to thousands. The energy in the room tilted, a collective shift of disbelief giving way to recognition. Camilla Hale had just submitted the camp's top fighter in less than 60 seconds. The referee raised her hand. The gesture was standard, procedural, but now the camera lights hit her full in the face. Reporters leaned forward from behind the barricades. Athletes who had laughed at her sat with their mouths half open, blinking like they were still trying to process what they had seen. A man in a navy blazer stepped forward. He was older, his Federation patch sewn carefully onto his breast pocket, a clipboard tucked under one arm. He conferred briefly with the referee, then turned toward Camilla, His expression was unreadable, part calculation, part awe. Without ceremony, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, sealed envelope. The Federation's emblem was stamped cleanly across the front. "This is yours," he said. His voice carried just enough to be heard. "International team, openweight division." Camilla took it without hesitation. She didn't look down. She didn't check the name. She already knew it was right. Behind her, someone stepped forward. Coach Drenner, the assistant who had once used her as a demonstration dummy, now wore a forced smile. "We had our eye on her," he said to the man beside him. "Knew there was something there. She just needed a little polish." He didn't finish the sentence. Another coach said nothing at all. His jaw was set. His arms crossed tightly over his chest as he watched Camilla take her place in the center of the mat. Around them, the gym buzzed, but she remained still. The bracket was being updated on the giant digital display above the stage. Her name, once scribbled at the bottom in a shaky hand, now glowed in bold letters, circled in gold by the system. Cameras zoomed in. Screenshots exploded across social media. A reporter crossed the floor, weaving past the other athletes. He carried a microphone and a cautious tone. "Excuse me," he said, stopping just short of her. "We didn't get your name on the stream. Could you tell us who you are?" She looked at him for the first time. Her expression didn't change, but she spoke. "My name is Camilla Hale," she said, voice even. "I was a national finalist 3 years ago. I submitted a medalist in the semis. They overturned the result, called it excessive force, political call. They said I didn't represent the right image." The room was silent again. She let the words hang, then added, "I wasn't here to redeem anything. I just wanted to finish what I started." She handed the microphone back. In the crowd, someone lowered their camera. A few of the other women, those who had once whispered over locker room benches, stood in place now, quiet. One of them looked down at her own belt as if seeing it for the first time. The Federation official stepped forward again, gesturing toward the bracket. "We'll need a photo," he said, "for the announcement." Camilla nodded once. She stood alone in front of the board while the photographer adjusted the focus. Behind her, the other openweight competitors formed a line. Most didn't speak. Ethan stood furthest back, one hand on his hip, jaw still clenched. His gaze never lifted. When the photo was taken, Camilla didn't smile. She didn't raise a fist. She just stood, calm, belt tied, gaze forward. Afterward, she moved toward the edge of the mat and picked up her sandals. They were still damp from where she had left them. She slid them on without looking down. A few reporters began to follow, trailing behind her at a respectful distance. She walked slowly along the hallway that wrapped behind the main gym. Every few steps, someone stopped talking as she passed. Eyes followed her. No one dared speak. The entrance to the locker room stood ahead. A janitor was cleaning the floors with a wide mop. When he saw her, he stopped. Their eyes met. He nodded once. She gave the smallest nod in return, stepped past him, and pushed open the door. Inside, the light was warm, buzzing faintly. Her locker had been untouched since the match. A new tag with her name had been placed on it in block letters. No one said who put it there. She sat on the bench and untied her belt slowly. It was still damp with sweat, the fabric heavy in her hands. She folded it carefully, smoothing the frayed edges between her fingers, then placed it back in her bag. From her pocket, she took the sealed letter. She didn't open it yet. She didn't need to. Outside, the announcements were beginning. Her name echoed faintly through the loudspeakers as a list of team selections was read aloud. The crowd applauded. Her name was last. She stood, shouldered her bag, and walked out without speaking. The hallway was empty now. Her steps were soft, measured, unhurried. Back at the far end of the gym, the bracket board still glowed. Her name, once scribbled as an afterthought, now sat at the top, bright, permanent. Every camera in the room had captured it. Every coach had seen it. Every teammate had heard it. She didn't look back. The door closed behind her, and for the first time, no one laughed. Camilla Hale was never meant to be the star of the room. She arrived unnoticed, laughed at, used as a prop. But beneath the silence, she carried something no one else did: the discipline to keep going when no one was watching, and the strength to rise without asking permission. Her victories were not loud. They were earned, one quiet step at a time, until the world had no choice but to see her. This is not just a story about winning. It's about the power of being steady, unshaken, and true to your purpose when every voice says you don't belong. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect. Share your thoughts in the comments, and follow for more quiet stories of dignity, strength, and unexpected triumph. Because sometimes, the ones they ignore are the ones rewriting the ending.